I didn't realize who she was until she started planning my fiancé's wedding with another man. It started with a flyer. Not even a digital ad, just a glossy paper flyer that someone had wedged under my windshield wiper while I was inside grabbing coffee. I remember frowning, annoyed, because it had rained the night before and the ink had bled, smearing the name of the wedding planning company. I almost tossed it, but something about it caught my eye. A logo. Familiar. Like something out of a memory I hadn't unpacked in decades. I shoved it into my jacket and forgot about it for a few hours. Not until later that night, when I emptied my pockets, did I see the name clearly. Verena Designs. My stomach dropped. Verena. My mother's name. Except she had disappeared from my life when I was 6. No calls. No postcards. Not even a whispered excuse from my dad, who said she needed time. That was 23 years ago. I Googled the company. High-end wedding planning. Luxury clientele. Every photo was the stuff of Pinterest dreams. Floral arches over lakes, violinists in vineyards, candlelit ballrooms. And then I found a video. An interview. There she was. Her hair shorter, silver at the temples, but unmistakably her. Verena Lynn Caldwell. My mother. Alive. Flourishing. And apparently in the business of building fairy tales for brides who had no idea their wedding planner was a ghost. I sat there for a long time, just staring at the screen. My fiancée, Madeline, was in the other room, humming as she folded laundry. She had no idea. Not about my mom. Not about the scars she left behind. Not about the birthday parties with one parent, the empty chairs at graduations. She only knew the version of me that had learned to bury things. But that night, something shifted. And it all came crashing down when Madeline came into the room, glowing, excited. You'll never believe this, she said, showing me her phone. The wedding planner I told you about? The one Jen recommended? She has a spot. And I booked a consult. I looked at the screen and felt my throat close. Verena Designs. She's supposed to be amazing, Madeline said. Total legend. I smiled. Numb. Yeah, I've heard. I didn't sleep that night. Or the next. I kept telling myself there was no way it was her. Coincidence. A different Verena. But then the day of the consult came. I offered to drive. Madeline thought I was being sweet. I was just trying to keep my legs from giving out. The office was in a renovated brownstone in the Arts District. Velvet chairs, crystal chandeliers. A sign on the front desk. Love, designed beautifully. A receptionist greeted us and said, "She'll be right out." And then the door opened. She stepped out wearing a navy blue suit and the kind of smile you wear for clients, not children. Her eyes flicked over me. No recognition. None. "Hi there," she said, offering her hand to Madeline. "I'm Verena. So glad you could come." She looked at me, polite. "And you must be the groom." I stared at her. "Yes," I said slowly. "I'm the groom." She smiled again. Professional. Effortless. And I realized something that made my skin crawl. She didn't recognize me. I was her son. And she didn't even flinch. I wanted to scream. Instead, I shook her hand and said nothing. She led us into a soft-lit room filled with silk sample swatches and towering binders. Madeline perched on a tufted bench, eyes sparkling. I sat beside her, still stunned. Verena, my mother, sat across from us and opened a leather-bound planner. She started with the basics. Date, venue, guest count. Madeline answered eagerly. I just watched how her hands moved. Watched how she laughed softly when Madeline joked about color palettes. Watched the way her eyes avoided mine. Or maybe she didn't need to avoid them. Maybe she truly didn't know who I was. 23 years. And I looked right into her face and saw a stranger. She asked me about the proposal. How I'd popped the question. I told her I did it on the cliffs in Oregon. That Madeline almost dropped the ring. Verena laughed. Cliffs are dramatic. I like that. That voice. I used to fall asleep to that voice reading bedtime stories. I used to stand on a stool in the kitchen and stir batter while she sang Sinatra off-key. And now she was complimenting my engagement like we were casual acquaintances. It was surreal. Madeline was all in. She kept looking between us, completely unaware of the war raging inside me. "You're exactly the kind of person we wanted," she told Verena. "Elegant, composed, but warm. You make it feel like a celebration already." Verena smiled. "That's very kind. I love helping people create moments they'll remember for a lifetime." Moments. She'd missed all of mine. She asked if we wanted a signature drink. Madeline loved the idea. Something with rosemary and gin. I nodded along, robotically. Then Verena said something that snapped me back into my body. I always say, a wedding is the story of a couple told through details. The trick is listening closely enough to hear it. I stared at her. Did she hear my story? Did she ever try? By the end of the consult, Madeline was sold. She booked her on the spot. Verena shook her hand again, told her she was excited. Then she turned to me. That same smile. That same chill. Looking forward to working with you, Ryan. Ryan. My name. She said it like she just learned it, as if she hadn't once whispered it while brushing my hair back, kissing my forehead goodnight, as if she hadn't left it behind. The drive home was silent. Not awkward, just heavy. Madeline was scrolling through her phone, already swooning over color palettes and dress pairings. Meanwhile, I kept my eyes on the road, trying to keep my hands from trembling. Every word Verena had spoken was echoing in my head like a drumbeat I couldn't turn off. Her voice, her laugh, her oblivious charm, and worst of all, her smile. That effortless, professional smile. The same one she gave my fiancé, like she hadn't erased me from her life without so much as a letter. I gripped the steering wheel tighter. I think we found our planner, Madeline said. She gets it, don't you think? Yeah, I said, voice flat. She definitely gets something. She looked over at me. Are you okay? You've been weirdly quiet. I swallowed. Just tired. Work's been a lot. It wasn't a lie, but it wasn't the truth either. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about how easily she had slipped into her role. Not mother, not even ex-wife. Just vendor. A name on a business card. A woman in heels and lipstick who walked into a room and started building someone else's dream like she hadn't dismantled mine. I pulled out my phone and stared at the website again. Verena Designs. I scrolled through the gallery until I hit a page titled about the founder. It was worse than I expected. There, beneath a professionally shot headshot and glowing accolades, was a paragraph that read like a fairy tale. After years of travel and self-discovery, Verena Caldwell found her calling in the art of celebration. Driven by a passion for love stories and human connection, she founded Verena Designs to help others find joy in life's most beautiful transitions. Years of travel, self-discovery. She'd left me and called it healing. She'd vanished, reinvented herself, and wrapped it all in soft-focused lighting and gold-embossed branding. And here I was, a footnote to her backstory, an inconvenient detail best left out of the narrative. I clicked off the site and just sat there in the dark, wondering if there was any part of her that still remembered my birthday. My favorite cereal. The time I fell off the monkey bars, and she carried me 3 blocks to urgent care because we didn't have a car. Madeline walked into the room. You okay? She asked. I turned the screen off. Yeah, just thinking. About the wedding? Yeah, I lied. About the wedding. She came and sat next to me, laying her head on my shoulder. It's going to be beautiful. I didn't say anything, because suddenly I wasn't sure what was more painful, that my mother didn't recognize me, or that she seemed genuinely happy to be part of someone else's story while pretending mine never happened. I stared out the window, and quietly, a single thought took hold. If she won't remember me, maybe it's time I remind her. The next time we met, I had a plan. I wasn't ready to blow everything up. Not yet. I just needed to be sure. Needed to see how far she was willing to carry the lie. Madeline had scheduled a follow-up to go over floral arrangements and table layouts. I offered to tag along again, and she beamed, thinking I was suddenly invested. Truth was, I wanted to study Verena in her element, see if anything cracked through that polished facade. We arrived late afternoon. The office smelled like eucalyptus and vanilla. Someone was playing soft jazz in the background. Everything was curated, effortless. She greeted us warmly, hugged Madeline, nodded at me. Ryan, she said, smiling. I said nothing. She led us into a room lined with vision boards and mock table settings. Madeline dove into fabric swatches like a kid in a candy store. Verena walked her through color combinations and centerpiece heights like it was second nature. Then she turned to me. What about you, Ryan? What are you hoping the atmosphere feels like? I stared at her. I guess I just don't want it to feel fake. Something flickered in her eyes. Just for a second. Then it was gone. Of course, she said. Authenticity is important. Madeline barely noticed. She was holding up 2 chair samples. Do you like gold or brushed nickel better? Nickel, I muttered, still watching Verena. We moved on to the mock reception layout. That's when I saw it. A framed photo on her desk, partially obscured by a clipboard. It was old, faded around the edges. A little boy, maybe 5, in overalls, grinning on a swing set. My stomach flipped. I knew that face. That park. That day. That was me. I stepped closer. Verena didn't stop me. "You kept this?" I asked, touching the glass. She looked confused. "Excuse me." I pointed. "The photo." She squinted, then smiled. "Oh, that's just a stock image we used for a community engagement ad. Cute, right?" And that was it. She didn't recognize the photo, or pretended not to. My childhood, a Shutterstock prop. Madeline was still comparing linens. "Babe, can you take a photo of this setup? I want to send it to my mom." I took the phone, snapped the shot. My hands were shaking. She didn't know. She didn't care to know. And I realized then, she'd buried me so deep in her past, she'd rewritten the story entirely. So maybe it was time I wrote the next chapter myself. One she couldn't ignore. I wasn't planning to tell Madeline. At least, not yet. Not until I could figure out what the hell I was trying to do. I wasn't looking to blow up her dream wedding. But how do you keep a secret like that from the woman you're about to marry? Turns out, you don't. It came out 2 days later. Madeline was on the couch, watching a reality show, half laughing at some disaster of a bachelorette party on screen. I stood in the doorway, arms crossed, pulse in my ears. My chest felt like it was being held underwater. "Babe," I said, and my voice cracked. She looked up immediately. "What's wrong?" I couldn't look her in the eye. "Verena," I said. "The wedding planner." She nodded. "Yeah. She's my mom." Dead silence. At first, I don't think she understood. She blinked. "Wait, what?" "She's my biological mother. She left when I was 6. I haven't seen her since. Not until we walked into her office." Madeline's mouth opened slightly. Her eyes were searching my face like she was looking for a punchline I hadn't delivered yet. But she didn't say anything. "Exactly," I said. She didn't recognize me. The next few seconds stretched like wire. Then she stood up. "Are you sure?" I nodded. She said my name like it meant nothing. She looked me in the face and saw a client. Not her kid. Madeline walked around the coffee table, slowly. "Ryan, why didn't you tell me?" "I didn't know how," I said. "I thought maybe it would be a fluke, that it wasn't her." But then she smiled like that, and it was her. Madeline sat down hard. "Jesus." I joined her. "I didn't want to ruin this for you." "You didn't," she said. She did. That made my throat close. We sat in silence for a while. I could feel the weight of her thoughts pressing between us. "I trusted her," she whispered finally. She felt warm. Safe. Like the kind of person who could hold something big with care. "She used to be," I said, "before she dropped me off at daycare one morning and just never came back." Madeline stared straight ahead. "What do we do now?" she asked. That question echoed in my skull all night. Because the truth is, I didn't know. But the next morning, I had an answer. I walked into Verena's office unannounced. Alone. The receptionist blinked up at me. "Do you have an appointment?" "I'm her son," I said. "Tell her Ryan's here." She hesitated, then picked up the phone. 2 minutes later, Verena stepped into the lobby. She looked at me, curious, pleasant, and then she must have seen something in my face. Her smile faltered. "Ryan," she said, "can I help you?" "No," I said, "but I think I can help you remember." And then I pulled the photo out of my jacket. The one from her desk. The one she said was stock. I held it up. "That's not a prop. That's me. That's your son. And you knew it." She froze. And for the first time, I saw something break behind her eyes. Recognition. Guilt. Fear. I stepped closer. "You're planning my wedding, Verena? You're designing the perfect day for a woman you don't even realize is marrying the boy you left behind." Her lips parted. Nothing came out. And in that moment, I finally understood. She hadn't forgotten me. She'd chosen to erase me. And now, I wasn't going to let her keep pretending I never existed. For a long time, she didn't say anything. She just stared at the photo in my hand like it was a ghost. Then her mouth moved, just slightly. "Ryan," she whispered, like she was tasting the word. I didn't flinch. "Took you long enough." Her hand reached for the frame, almost involuntarily. "I didn't know." "Don't," I cut in. "Don't you dare say you didn't know." "You looked me in the eye. Twice. I watched you explain floral tears and linen samples like we were strangers on the bus." Her face crumpled for a second. I was shocked. I wasn't sure. "You." I grew up. She closed her eyes. "Ryan," I swear to you I laughed. Harsh. Cold. Don't you dare swear to me. You gave that up when you walked out. We stood in the middle of her showroom, surrounded by love letters on ivory cardstock and champagne flutes etched with initials. It felt obscene, like grief in a bridal boutique. She sat down slowly, hands trembling. I thought about reaching out. When I snapped. When I made the honor roll in 8th grade. When I broke my wrist in high school. When I graduated college. When I got engaged. I followed your life, she whispered. I saw your name on the alumni lists. I read about your firm. I kept tabs. I shook my head. Keeping tabs isn't parenting. It's stalking with guilt. Her voice cracked. I thought I'd only make things worse if I came back. You did, I said. By staying gone. There was a long silence between us. Then she said something I didn't expect. I didn't leave because of you. My jaw clenched. Don't pretend this is noble. I was drowning. I was 25, married to a man I didn't love, living in a city that felt like a prison. And I had a baby who needed more than I knew how to give. You could have learned, I said, quieter now. Like my dad did. You could have tried. She nodded. I know. And for the first time, her tears didn't feel like manipulation. They felt like regret. But it didn't change anything. I'm not here for your apology, I said. Then why are you here? I stepped back. Because you're not planning my wedding anymore. Her eyes widened. Ryan. No. This day is supposed to be about love. Family. The people who show up. Not the ones who rewrite their story so they can sleep at night. She stood slowly. Please don't do this. I stared at her. I'm not doing anything. I'm just stopping you from continuing to do it. I turned and walked out. And as the door closed behind me, I felt lighter. Not healed. Not whole. But for the first time in years, free. I thought that would be the end of it. Me walking out. Her fading back into whatever curated fairy tale she'd been living in. But endings don't come clean. Not in families. Not in stories like ours. It took less than 24 hours for her to reach out. It was a letter. Not an email. Not a text. A letter. Handwritten. Slanted cursive. Cream-colored stationery. It looked like it belonged next to a monogrammed invitation, not in my mailbox. I almost didn't open it. But I did. She started with my name. Not Ryan. Not son. Just my name. Like she didn't know how to earn the rest. She said she was sorry. Not in a performative way. Not with excuses. Just sorrow. Quiet, aching sorrow. She said she remembered everything. The night I cried after scraping my knee. The way I hated green beans. The Spider-Man backpack I refused to let go of. She said she knew she didn't deserve a second chance. She said she'd never stop hoping I'd give her one anyway. I folded the letter and shoved it into a drawer. Madeline found me an hour later, still staring at the counter. Was that from her? She asked. I nodded. She came closer. Are you okay? I didn't answer. Because I wasn't. And I didn't even know what okay looked like anymore. I canceled with her, Madeline said softly. I turned. What? I called. Told her we found someone else. She didn't argue. I exhaled. Thank you. She reached for my hand. You don't have to protect me from this. I'm with you. Not the fantasy. Not the photos. You. That cracked something open inside me. Because all this time, I'd been bracing for impact. For judgment. For her to tell me this was too messy. But she didn't flinch. Later that week, we met with a new planner. A small firm. Less glam, more heart. The woman, Janine, had laugh lines and calloused hands from years of actually setting up tables herself. She didn't care about magazine spreads. She cared about people. When she asked about our story, Madeline squeezed my hand. I took a breath. And I told her. Not the whole thing. But enough. Enough to feel like I wasn't hiding anymore. Janine nodded. Then let's make this wedding about truth. And that word, it landed deeper than I expected. Truth. Not perfection. Not pretending. Just truth. So that's what we started building. A day that didn't require anyone to lie about who they were or who they had been. The wedding was small. Not because we couldn't afford more, but because that's what felt right. Honest. Only the people who'd walked beside us during the storms got an invite. No curated glamour. No crystal chandeliers. Just an old barn wrapped in string lights, the smell of wildflowers, and a quiet kind of joy that settled over everything like fog. I stood at the altar, hands shaking. Not from fear. From clarity. Madeline walked down the aisle like gravity bent toward her. Her dress was simple. Her smile wasn't. My father was there. He hugged me tight before the ceremony. Didn't say much. Just, your mom would be proud. I didn't correct him. Didn't tell him that mom was a complicated word these days. Verena wasn't there, but I knew she wanted to be. She'd written again. Another letter. This one came the morning of, tucked in a white envelope under the door of our Airbnb. I read it before I got dressed. She said she wouldn't come, that she respected my choice, that sometimes the greatest love is knowing when to step back. She said she hoped someday I'd let her step forward again. She said she'd wait. I folded the letter and put it in my coat pocket. Not as a symbol, just as a truth. After the vows, we danced. Not perfectly. Not like those Instagram couples who twirl like professionals. We laughed through most of it. I stepped on her dress. She snorted in my ear. But it was ours. Janine handed us sparklers for the send-off. The last moment. The walk into the next part. And as we stood outside under a sky scattered with stars, I felt something shift in me. The kind of peace that only comes after truth. After wreckage. After choosing to walk forward instead of being pulled backward by ghosts. I turned to Madeline. Ready? She smiled. Only if you are. And with sparks flying around us, we walked. Not away from the past, but into a future we built ourselves. No ghosts. No lies. Just us. A month after the wedding, a small white envelope showed up in our mailbox. No return address. Just my name, written in the same looping script I'd been trying to forget. Verena. I held it in my hands for a long time before opening it. Madeline sat across from me at the kitchen table, watching silently. No pressure. Just presence. Inside, there was no apology. Not this time. Just a photograph. It was us. Me, maybe 5 years old, sitting on her lap. My head tilted back, laughing. Her arms wrapped around me, smile wide and unguarded. Whoever took the photo caught something real. On the back, she'd written one line. I remember. That was it. Not an ask. Not a plea. Just a memory, given back to me. I didn't cry. Not exactly. But I did sit there a while, letting the edges of everything soften. Somewhere inside me, there was still a boy who needed to know he hadn't been forgotten. And maybe that was enough. Maybe forgiveness doesn't come all at once. Maybe it's not about a grand gesture, or a speech, or some teary reunion at the airport. Maybe it's quieter than that. A photo. A truth. A space left open, not for what was, but for what might still become. I didn't write her back. Not yet. But I put the photo in a frame. Not in the living room. Not on display. Just on a shelf in my study, between a signed copy of a book Madeline gave me and an old wooden toy my dad saved from when I was a kid. Somewhere it could live. Somewhere it could exist. Not as a symbol. Just as part of the story. The full story. And for now, that's where I'll leave it.